all of us, every single woman that's in be it in business, outside of business, entrepreneur, wherever you are in your life, just pulls one other woman with her, we would never have to worry about a gender gap anymore.
Welcome to Women We Should Know with international speaker, mindset reset mentor, author, and your host, Leslie Michaels. With audacious honesty and candor, the Women We Should Know podcast presents the wisdom and life-empowering insights of women who are the embodiments of innovation and social evolution. Please join Leslie as she shares potent conversations that will inspire your personal and professional evolutions.
Welcome back to Women We Should Know. And as many of you are aware, the very favorite part of my day, every day, is when I get to sit down with a smart, fierce, audacious woman who is making strides that open industry and different parts of the world to all of womanhood. And today, I have just such a woman that I am excited to share that conversation with and with you. Irina Soriano is a motivational speaker and the author of Generation Brand. I just finished that book, so we'll be talking about it quite a bit. Fascinating book. It's a modern playbook for cultivating our life brand. She currently serves as vice president at Seismic, a SaaS company, and is a pioneer in her professional field. Don't we love pioneer and woman all in the same sentence? She has held senior positions across EMEA, Asia Pacific, and the US. This experience has exposed her to working with and mentoring an extremely diverse group of men and women across multiple industries in different parts of the world. Irina has built a strong life brand around her passion to make a significant contribution to closing the gender gap by enabling the next generation of girls and young women to drive a cultural paradigm shift. Say that quickly 3 times. I challenge you. Toward gender equality in business and beyond. This is our kind of woman, a woman who is not only making great strides for herself, but is opening doors for those women who will come to be as we go through the next decade and even beyond. I am thrilled to have her on the show today.
Thanks for having me. So excited to chat with you today.
Absolutely. You are doing big, big things in the world. Congratulations.
Even if it makes a small wave, the goal is accomplished, right?
That is right. That is right.
And we cannot always used to say reach one person and you've done the job. So
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So before we get started, I have just this little fun tradition that lets the audience get to know you a little better and lets you share with the audience a little more. What is one thing that is not in your bio that you would enjoy the audience knowing about you?
Interesting. What's not in my bio is probably that I'm not officially a mom, I'm a stepmom to twin boys that are 21 years old and that unfortunately have very severe disabilities, but that have enriched my life in many different ways. So that's probably something you would not read in my bio.
How wonderful that you get to have your life enriched by these 2 humans. Yes. So let's jump right in. I only have a million questions here, and we're not going to get to all of them in this period of time. We'd have to take the afternoon, but I have many things that I want to discuss with you. One of the things that really affected me and that really spoke to me as I was reading Generation Brand is your discussion around the impact of confidence and the confidence barrier between men and women and their approach to social media. Could you expand on that?
Yeah. So, when we talk about the whole, why is there no gender parity in business? Why is there more guys that make it up to the top than women? I mean, I don't have to throw you out the numbers. We all know what the deal is here, right?
Right.
And the discussion is always, what do the companies need to do? The DEI programs we have to put in place. And I don't disagree with any of that. Companies have to do their work. But if we really drill it down, what it comes down to, and I see this often enough in my own life and my career, like up to this day, it's always the confidence that might not be there, the belief in our own abilities, right? The not having the courage to leap for the things that we know we should do, but that we're afraid of doing because we might not do them perfectly. I think this is something that many, many women carry with them, and I'm one of them and have been. And I always openly speak about that. And I don't think, most men, I'm not saying all men, do have that same confidence or lack of confidence, right? So, and there's tons of research on that. So we know there's a confidence gap between men and women. I think this impacts how we're managing and driving our careers. I think a change there is going to impact how women advance their careers and how we can actually create gender parity in business and eventually beyond, and talk gender equality, which is a much bigger topic from just simple gender parity, meaning 50% men and women in the positions across all organizations. And social media plays into that, because this next generation of women that we're all talking about, like ones that are going to close the gender gap, when I look at what's happening and to their confidence when they teenagers and they get into social media at the age of 13, at least in the US, really, really early, I find that really worrying. Those are the women I'm going to hire, right? That come in, having get their teeth kicked in on social media for years and years and years. How are they going to be more confident than I am right now, where I got into Facebook in my mid-20s? So for me, that's the real concern. So when I bring these two topics together, like that intersection between social media and gender gap, like people go, what does that have to do with each other? But when you start to unpack it, I think it has to do with everything, and there's no education there. There's no awareness. There's no concepts on this one photo you put out there. What is that going to do when you want to be a, senior leadership executive, wherever you want to go? There's just this huge lack of education, and that's the reason why I wrote this book, because it helped me in my own career. Unfortunately, too late discovered in my early 30s, but I eventually got there, and I wanted to share what has helped me building my confidence with other women out there.
And I find it really powerful that you're talking about you're in your early 30s and you eventually got there, as I sit here at 65 and learned so much through your book that I had never considered. Now, I can't go back and undo 35 years worth of social media, and I can't even think about caring about it. But in terms of how do we educate, certainly there's one resource now, your book, which I would hold up if I wasn't at home on my nightstand my bedstand beside my bed where I finished it last night. But what do you propose that we start doing to help males and females, but primarily females, become aware of not just what not to do, but the positive impact they can have starting at a very young age?
Yeah. So, it's an interesting question. The book that I wrote is, the target audience for this book is really millennial women like myself. I'm like, old millennial. I just, right. So I'm like right at that end there.
I thought you were looking a little
Gen
ancient
Z,
today.
right? There you go. It's this one here. So and Gen Z, right? So the women that are, now like in their studies that are about to enter the workforce, like that's really the target audience for that book. If I were to throw that at a 13-year-old kid, they're not going to care, right?
Right.
I wouldn't. Like when I started writing this, my mother said to me, she's like, at 16, you didn't give a about what I was saying to you in that regard. And there was no Facebook or nothing, but she would already say, don't go to the party and make sure somebody takes a photo of you. Like, it was the same discussions back then, but we just didn't care. Like we didn't think it's going to be a problem one day. So I think at that age, you just have a different mindset. You go on, you see the world of Instagram, right? With beautiful women and like a lot of things out there that might impact you in a certain way. And I think and that's my next book project. It's easy to reach larger audiences through a book, right? That's the best way. I think that's a book that should go into the school curriculum. That should be part of what we're teaching in school, like, how to, and I'm sure we get that, like build and own your life brand, how to use social media, because it's great, right? For me, it's the vehicle to make sure you're confident by the time you're in your late 20s or 30s and you are applying for that first manager job. So you're actually going to get it, right? And you can position yourself feeling equal to your male peers. So I think that has to start early, but the content has to be written that an audience that's 14, 15, 16 can actually receive it, right? And the book I've written is for women that are, women and men that are studying and that are, in the business world, right? That, that are kind of on that path already. So that's one of my next projects on the list of many things. And I'm also happy to go into schools and speak about this, right? So to help with the education, but I think it has to happen on broader scale. And I have a lot of friends that are parents that say, I'm overwhelmed with this. Like, I don't know what to say to my 16-year-old daughter because she doesn't care like what I'm saying. So it comes with if you say, no, don't do, that's just not going to land. Like, we don't want to hear this.
It's not going to land. No.
Like, it's not. We're not going to care, right? The more we want it. But I think if you come with, here is how you do it right, and go do loads of it, but within this guardrail I'm giving you, now we're having a much different conversation. You know what I mean? So
Exactly. Because at that age, we're immortal and we know everything there is to be known. That's just it. Yeah.
And I get it. And this thing is fun, and it's supposed to be fun, right? That's what it was designed for, not to do cancel culture and ruin people's life, right? That was not what this was put in the world for. So it's almost bringing it back to its purpose and allowing people to do good things in that teeny tiny communities that they have on a larger scale, what I'm trying to do as you maneuver your life, and you can use social media to also build your confidence.
And that brings us to another topic on the list, which is the fact that this whole social media thing was supposed to be fun, and now it has turned into a battleground. It's a battleground for politicians. It's a battleground for social justice. It's a battleground for young people trying to get the most likes and doing the most outrageous things to get the most likes. It's a battleground. It's no longer fun.
Yeah.
Well, aside from the political and the social justice, which I know you and I could go way off down that path and get lost in the weeds, this idea of young people using it, or any person of any age, chasing the likes. You talk in the book about chasing the likes.
Yeah, like addiction.
Like addiction, yes.
Yeah.
And I suspect that is not limited to the teenagers, to the young people.
I have it. I could totally have it. And you probably do too. Think about when you put this, you work for a long time on this post. This is a great piece of content, right? Or this podcast that we're doing right now. And you put that out there. If you tell me you never go back to check how many people commented and liked, then I wouldn't believe you. Am I right saying that?
No, I have people that do that. I really don't do that. But I will confess this. The reason I don't do it is because it was eating up too much of my time.
Fair enough.
Because I was addicted. I'm not acting all pure here.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually had to pass it off and say, okay, you have to handle this every day. And then just bring me the ones that I actually need to respond to personally.
Right. Right.
I suspect there's something in the algorithm that causes addiction, but maybe that's just some bizarre thought on my part.
Yeah, it's and I hear you on that. Social media I help as well, but I like to write my own messages and my own content. And I look at stuff and I go, oh, this thing, me talking about how you negotiate your salary, that clearly landed really well. Let me make more of that, right?
Right.
It's that whole, I give you an example, right? So when my husband proposed to me, we were on a motorcycle trip in New Zealand, and he gave me this beautiful ring that I'm wearing. And I posted that on Facebook, right? It's the only platform I was on at that point in time. And the many times we both went back to see how many people commented and liked our post, that just says it all for me, right? It's there is something in us where we go, this is the way we communicate with people. And especially when we're younger and you get, pressure, it's like pressure almost.
Yes.
And you're in these little communities of friends, and everybody wants to show up better. There's a pressure of doing things that are more daring, or I have to show more, or I have to do something that just gets me more. So you have to do something out of the normal mainstream. And I think that's how the accidents happen, right? That's how I go and put my butt in the camera, or that's how it goes. And I make a comment that lands really wrong, and that's going to haunt me for the next 30 years. And I'm not aware of it right now. It's the external pressure that makes these things happen, So that's why I think understanding that concept of life brand, that's preventing people at an early age from making those mistakes that are going to come back to you years later. And it can happen to everybody. Nobody is exempt from that. You said, I don't remember the last 30 years of my, life and what I did. Nobody does. It's right. I'm not preaching here in any shape or form. I didn't even look at what I was posting until I started to get aware of this whole concept, right? It's just click, click, and off you go.
Right.
Like we all do often,
Bunch of little keyboard warriors not paying any attention to where we're throwing our darts.
Right? All the comments, the likes. I mean, I analyzed my own life brand, and I put like a launch kit in the book so people can do this for themselves and then really have a plan of how they can control it. And I'm like, 50, 60, 70,000 pieces of content? Easy. I don't remember those. I mean, how? Nobody can.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's something I was going to mention is, as we're talking about this book, Women, one of the things that I really appreciated about the way Irina did her book is the fact that about the last third, I believe it is a launch kit, or a quarter of the book. It's not just a page or two. There's a significant dedicated space to really help you start to employ some of the things you'll hear us talking about today. So the reason I decided to have someone handle all my social media, honestly, was trolls. The snarky comments, because I don't need to not say on this podcast that I have a mouth on me and I can be snarky, because it's already out there. Everybody already knows that. So I would get these really nasty comments on my content. And before I know it, my thumbs are going, but I was, except for one time, always able to stop myself. And I realized this is not good for my blood pressure. This is not good for my mind. So now I just get a spreadsheet at the end of the week. I know which content landed well, which content didn't, and then a list of individuals I need to get back to personally. And in your book, you talk about, number one, the fact that the trolls ruined the internet. I thought that was an interesting statement. And then I also found it interesting that you said that there are individuals who actually, by intention, identify as trolls. Did I understand that correctly?
I don't know if they would call themselves that, but I think it's some people go out with the intention to do what they're doing, right? And I don't think everybody. I think a lot of folks have an emotional reaction to something they hear, and because they're not looking at you. Because think about it, they meet you at a party, right? I don't know what's one of the nastiest things is that somebody said to you. But imagine they meet you at a party and they say this in your face. It's like, they'd never do it. They'd not approach a stranger and make such a comment to you about something that you did. Your work is wonderful, right? Nobody would dare to do that. But yet, when there's no face and no human, we're very quick to like drop a bomb on somebody and say something out of emotion, right? So I think and I've been very lucky. Like I get little bits and bobs here where I'm like, oh, okay, like I see it, whatever. It doesn't really it doesn't defeat my purpose that I'm having here. And disagreement is good, right? I want people to disagree with things that I say. It's great. That triggers discussion and conversation that I can engage in social media, right? But there's obviously a fine line. If I say you're ugly, I'm like, I'm talking about salary negotiation. What does this have to do with anything? We're just overstepping a certain line, right? And my point is, especially young girls, and I was talking to a girl while I was doing the research for the book, who told me, she's like, my first time on TikTok, and I had this bathing suit on, and I put this video up, and everybody said I'm fat and ugly. And like I took it down. I've never gone back on the platform, but then all summer I didn't want to wear a bathing suit and I'm a lifeguard. Like that it was a beautiful young girl. I mean, ridiculous, right? So just hearing stuff like that and like how this few little comments can surely have impacted that girl's confidence now for a long time. And that body image, obviously, and females look at that a little bit differently than males as well, generally. That's shocking to me. So you have a vehicle to protect yourself from it. Other people are not going to have that, right? Or that start earlier in life, they won't be able to do that. So that's my whole point is when you control your life brand, you understand what it is, you start to control it, and you post around a specific purpose that you have chosen. So if I was to decide to put a photo out there showing a piece of my body that already I might not feel as great about, and I get a negative comment, that might land with me differently as if I'm, say, playing the guitar and posting a song that I wrote. And this is aligned to the purpose of my life brand, is music, right? That's what I post about. And somebody says my song is terrible. I'm probably not going to care as much about it because it's within the realm of my purpose, right? And I feel good about putting this content out there. So it's all about posting with intention. And this has nothing to do with personal branding. That's anywhere you post, any comment you post, any reply, any like, any love, is because, like I said, it can be traced back to you for forever. There's no delete button on the internet. The stuff's out there, even
it's
if
out there. So two things I want to talk about. First of all, I did not know you were into music. I did not know you played and did songs and all of that. That's another podcast we'll have to do. I just want to put that out there. But what I would really like to invite you to do right now is to help people understand and explain, because I did not understand until I read your book. What is the very clear difference between a personal brand and a life brand?
Yeah. So a personal brand, as we would all understand it, is an intentional effort to build your brand through public channels, right? And most of people's cases, it's not going to be television, but it's going to be social media, right?
Right.
And that's all intentional. And I do this because I maybe want to establish credibility in a certain field, or I want to advance my career, or right? So there's different, right? Anybody does it for a different reason. That's personal branding. Now, life brand goes way beyond that concept. So imagine it as every single piece of content. That means every photo, every video, every comment, any like, any love, any trace that features you or that others posted of you as photos or videos you might not know about, right? Because that can happen occasionally if you happen to be in a photo somewhere. That entire collection that's publicly accessible right now, that's your life brand. Now, that also includes everything that hasn't made its way onto the internet yet, right? If I know how many pictures, people have photos of me on their phone or videos or codec cameras. That's how we used to operate when I was 16, right? We had cameras and we would go to the store and develop the photos. And I have 5,000 of them in my closet right now. A lot of them I'm not proud of. And a lot of friends featured in there that they wouldn't love. So I took them all and got rid of them. All of that stuff is also your life brand, because that's the potential to surface at any point in time. So what people often do is they have this public channel where they do personal branding, and then they go, this other stuff I put in my private, there's only my friends and family in there, right? And that's where the danger then comes in, because once you contradict yourself, or you've built a certain life brand around a purpose or a certain identity that you want to portray, and you share things that are not in line with that, that can damage your life brand. Hence where the whole cancel culture discussion is coming from, right? So that's really the difference. So it's the understanding that everything you say and do out there is part of your life brand, but also anything you do that somebody can record, because half of the people in the world now have a smartphone. So if I leave my house right now and I do something really strange in the middle of the street, I guarantee you that's on the internet in 5 minutes. Right?
Oh,
It's gonna be.
Because it doesn't even have to be someone you know.
No. Think about, give you like a famous example. The I don't know how many years it was ago, the singer Ariana Grande goes into a donut shop in LA and takes a donut and licks it and puts it back, right? And made a couple of terrible statements. And somebody filmed it and put it on the internet. And then she was super embarrassed, and obviously the whole life brand debacle, but she apologized and she recovered from licking those donuts. But my point is, if you don't think there's always somebody near with a camera, like, what are we doing? Because I know everybody I know has a smartphone right now. So the second somebody else is in the room with you, whatever you say or do is at risk of being recorded in some shape or form, right?
Exactly.
And that's also work now. We're on Zoom calls all day. Anything you say, everything is recorded. It's you got to think about every word that comes out of your mouth. That's reality.
It is reality. And everyone has their phones more accessible now. Maybe at one point we dropped our phones in our bags. But you walk down the street in any city and everyone has their bag, but their phone is in their hand. You never know when you need to catch that shot. Usually it's something outrageous. That's why you want to catch it.
So true. Yeah.
And then this person you don't know is putting it who knows where, and who knows how many fives or hundreds of thousands of people they have following them.
Yeah.
Cancel culture. There's a big debate. Is cancel culture a real thing? Is it not a real thing? I don't know that the debate matters as much as the effects.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So I really, with the book research, I heard of this before, obviously, but I really got into it and wanted to speak to people that this happened to. And I don't know if you had a chance to watch my TEDx talk, but it opens with a testimonial, right, from a young girl.
Tragic.
Yeah, that got canceled over a photograph that was taken many, many years ago with no bad intent, and it spiraled into, a lot of tragic consequences for her.
Yes.
And she's very brave to come forward and share her story. So I was very, very proud of her doing that. And so the impact is real, and this is happening not just to celebrities like the Ellen DeGeneres that we all heard about, right? So these public examples, but this happens to people like you and me, right? Like normal humans, and unfortunately, a lot of young people now as well because of this lack of social media education, right? And I think often in many cases that I have looked into, you know, some of it were intentional, and others, it's if I see the 13-year-old, you know, putting something out on TikTok and it has like a racial undertone and that she probably didn't even understand. And now all of a sudden we have like a life ruined over something like that. So,
Right.
you know, I'm not saying here anybody should be the judge of what's right or what's wrong, who gets punished and who doesn't get punished. But I think there is just a really fine line of where, hey, somebody made a legitimate mistake. Like this, you know, this wasn't
Right.
with any bad intent. And I
Right.
think that's really blurry, and it's super hard. And I'm hoping with the work I do that I can prevent even just one person from making such a mistake, right? And thinking
Right.
through. And every time there's a camera out there, go, am I doing something right now that should be on there or not? Like that's the hope for the work that I do, you know,
Yeah.
to stay
And how do
functional.
we walk through our lives being normal people and having those normal people moments where somebody might that we don't know might catch it on the phone without being just taxed with paranoia?
Yeah. I mean,
And that's what I can see young people making that argument. I have to be able to live my life.
yeah. And, you know, and I think with the just the concept and the idea I'm proposing, you can.
Mhm.
It's just having just doing things with a certain amount of intention, right? Or making sure that if you go and you had 10 drinks too many, which we all had surely countless times, that you have somebody there with you that you know is you're looking after you. You know, there's many ways how you
Right.
do it. You know, and hang with people, you know, right? But you know, a lot of things are just not, you can't be on top of this every single day. I'm not, you know, I sometimes hang up the phone, I go, like I shouldn't have said that. We're all
We
human.
do.
This
We
happens.
all do. Yeah.
But if you avoid 80% of, you know, if I had 50,000 social media interactions since I was on there, and 80% of them I know what happened with intention, that's a much higher protection than just me blindly hitting the button on things.
Exactly. Right? And that's the point that I really hope people understand. It's not about just getting into a constricted place with your life, but living intentionally, which is a general good rule of thumb anyway. Yeah. Now, something I want to speak about with you, because you've done such research on this, and this is a big topic for me, but I haven't carried it into the social media arena. That's not my field of expertise. We have people like you for that. And that is the increased amount of bullying that women receive on social media over what men receive. And I have a specific question, which is, there are many studies women experience more incivility from women in the workplace than from men.
Yep.
How is this playing out in social media, and how is it worse? Is it the same? I can't imagine that it's better.
So I wouldn't be able to give you a qualified answer there that I could back up with data, right? Where I say, hey, amount of women that's, you know, get bullied by other women. That I wouldn't be able to say. But
just your general observation and experience, because you do have a vast wealth of experience.
Yeah, I can give you my opinion on it. So it's personally in my life, I might have been just really lucky. I have a lot of women in my social community and in my life, you know, be it through work and in my private life as well, that have been nothing but encouraging about anything I do, be this work, be this book, be this TED, be this me celebrating a promotion, whatever that might be. And again, that's just my personal experience, but I think it's also sometimes is a little bit what you're attracting as well, I think. So it's a bit of a universe type principle. What you put out, you also get a little bit back, right? I think there's something to it. And if I look back onto my life, I've obviously mentored and supported many, men as well, but a lot of women that would come to me and say, how have you done this? Can you help me to get to XYZ? So I've given so much back and try to share that I'm feeling I'm getting this in return. It's
Right.
And again, that's applicable for my personal life, right? So and there's the occasional one here or there, a little comment I'm getting where I'm like, okay, I got like on, especially on the topic of self-promotion, that's like a hot one for also for other women. And often when I hear, especially not really men, that really comes from women in my personal case, when I hear comments about that, my first thought is, I've never ever heard you do that. So that's probably where this comment is coming from. So hopefully, and I promote the hell out of things all the time, right? And because I want other women to do this too. And when I read somebody saying, I got this, or I achieved this, I'm the first one to go on and celebrate them. So I think there's a little bit of truth to that. I think there can be an element of jealousy too, right? That's totally something that can feed into that. The whole kind of competition thing coming out. So yeah, I've personally, I experience it here and there, not as a huge amount, but I am aware that this is something that does happen a lot, and I think if you think about like executive level women, right, that are up there, if I think about, say, the finance world, or like these places where, women had to fight really, really hard to get up there, like for 20 or 30 years, I think there could be something to it, not wanting other women up there, because right now being the only woman up there is your advantage, right? You're the only one. Like, it makes you kind of special. So once everything is 50-50, that I'm not special anymore, So I think that is something that can play into this.
Oh, it definitely, from my research, is a key contributor.
Yeah.
Key contributor. Women don't want to share the hard fought for space. So
Right.
In addition to reading Generation Brand, which is a great idea for anyone who's a millennial or younger, and an extraordinary idea for anyone who has kids or even grandkids. I've sent messages to several of my friends who have grandkids who are moving into puberty. But in addition to that, for today, starting right this minute, as a woman hears this podcast and she's driving down the road and she's thinking about all the potential pitfalls she might have tripped in, what are the top 5 things a person could start today, just immediately doing, to place themselves in a better position in creating their life brand?
Yeah. So I think number 1 is understand what it is, right? So it's just the awareness piece. You're already with one foot in if you get what it is, right? Because that means
Right.
come tomorrow, you're going to make different decisions when it comes
Right.
to your social media presence. You're going to check yourself with anything you say and do out there, right? I think that's automatically what happens to a lot of people. The next step is, and that's really how the Life Brand Launch Kit is structured in my book as well, is to go back and understand what life brand you have. And I've done this for me. So it's, I do this for work, right? Back in the days while I was still just hands-on with things, I would sit down and build programs for people, right? And that's how I've designed this launch kit. So people can say it's a working section that I piece by piece I can go through to uncover my own life brand. So go back as many years if you've been in it, and analyze how far this is either speaking towards who you are and how you want to be represented, or how much it speaks against that. So it's really spending a week looking into that. And then the next part to it is understand your current social media usage. How much are you posting each week? How many likes, how many loves, how many claps, how many comments, how many photos, how many videos, right? So there's a whole weekly diary in there where you go and just look at your behavior, right? Where do you spend your time and what do you do? So you get an understanding, what is your whole life brand? So it's almost like a formula in there, how you can calculate roughly, and that's, a rough number, but it gives you an idea. Have you shared 2,000 pieces of content or maybe 250,000? Because it's a little bit of a difference there, right? Mm-hmm. And I think from there, it's about defining your identity and then start to look out what your purpose can be. And with purpose, I'm not saying curing a disease, okay? So it could be, my purpose is my hobby, right? Where I play the guitar and I sing, or I'm 16 and I'm full on into makeup. Great, that's an awesome hobby. Or your profession, like for me, it would be enablement, or a passion. Like for me, it's gender gap, but for somebody else, it might be gardening or baking or, whatever it might be. So those are the natural few steps to go through. And, obviously then I give tips and tricks as well, how you can really kick this off and how you can start, posting within the realm of your purpose, right? To fully control your life brand and ultimately be able to drive and impact some change in your communities as well.
Well, thank you for that. Now, the next question I wanted to ask you, the next thing I want to invite you to share with our audience, you speak in the book of, I have his name here, one of your mentors, Rushian McDonald? Russian McDonald. Apparently quite the master in personal branding. And he said, the first thing is understanding what being a brand means. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. I wish he was my mentor. I know him and he was very gracious to make a contribution to the book. I could call him my mentor, maybe one day. So I think the whole point it's really the understanding of what it means to be a brand, right? And the different components that flow into that. And that's not just, like I said, doing a social media post here and there, right? And he's obviously a public figure. He worked with Steve Harvey for many, many years, right? He's been on television. He's doing many things to build his brand. But this also means the level of responsibility that now comes with this once you have, an established, or how I would call it, life brand, right? So I think there's more to it than just understanding what you put out there, but also the impact that it has and the people that take your word and do things, or impact things in their own life based on things that they learned from you. So it's really the understanding of that responsibility. Once you get to a certain level and you impact many, many people, like, your words have weight and what you say matters, right? So I think it's really it goes beyond just the social media presence, but also the impact that you have on that audience and the responsibility that comes with it.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you answered that, because that is just that's one of those things that makes my head spin, is the way we are seeing, well, pre-COVID, we'll see what happens on television when we get out of this. But the way certain individuals, they aren't technically celebrities, unless we're talking about reality stars as a secondary category of celebrity. But the ethos they are portraying, particularly to our young women. So to be able to speak, for you to speak to the responsibility, I appreciate that reference, and I appreciate your focus on the importance of taking responsibility for what it is that you're influencing individuals to do, and what you're influencing individuals to think is valuable over something else. As we near the close, what did I not ask you? What did I not give you space to address that you would really like to share?
I think you did pretty good, I have to say.
Well, thank you.
yeah,
Oh, that gives me a like. See, now I have a buzz.
Totally. I mean, listen, you hit on the gender piece. We talked about life brand. We talked about women and confidence. I think you really nicely covered the whole realm, the different demographics, the impact that this whole topic can have on people's lives. So I think you did a wonderful job. If I could think about anything I would want to say for closing, it's maybe a little bit related to one of the points that you brought up. Or a little call to action, maybe I would rather call that.
Absolutely.
For me, if all of us, every single woman that's be it in business, outside of business, entrepreneur, wherever you are in your life, just pulls one other woman with her on that path that she's going on, we would never have to worry about a gender gap anymore. And for me, it's always at the end of the week, I like to look back and go, who have I impacted this week? Stranger, somebody I knew, with a comment I made, something nice I said, a feedback I gave, knowledge I shared, anything. That for me is what makes this problem go away, right? In the awareness of that, and taking one woman with you on the way, whatever your way is. That would be my final little call to action.
Well, you are singing my song. Amazing. I love that.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. This has been really enjoyable. Now, I'm looking forward to having you back on when you get that next book finished. Or when you get this whole template created that can go into the schools to educate our young, or whatever great, wonderful thing you do next. Thank you, Irina, for coming and being on the show today. I trust that every one of you out there got several nuggets, several insights, several calls to action, some on your behalf, some on the behalf of another woman, and that you will put those into play and really move forward with them. As I always do for you, in the program notes, lesliemichaels.com, go to podcast. We will have Irina's, the name of her book. We will have whatever URL or contact information she wants to provide. Be sure and click, subscribe, and comment. Any comments that you leave for us here at the show, we're happy to receive. And the comments you leave for our guests, we always pass them on to the guests so that they can interact with you, so that they can respond to your comments. So click, subscribe, and comment. And as we close out this episode of Women We Should Know, I just want to remind you that you are smarter, stronger, and wiser than you know.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you received inspiration for expanding your own social innovation and influence. Help us inspire others by sharing this episode and leaving your comments over at lesliemichaels.com/podcast. For more tips, insights, and support in creating a fully audacious, professional, and personal lifestyle you love, visit our Women We Should Know community on Facebook.